Happy Friday Eve, everybody. Happy Friday Eve. We are in the first Thursday of March. Good God Almighty. Karen, where did the time go?
I feel like every time I do these, it's the first week of the new month, and we're like, how is it the new month already again? We haven't caught up to the thing. Time passes, huh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And it's funny you say that. The first Thursday of every month is when we do this, but it's like it's a surprise every time it happens.
It is, I know.
But y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in. If you're tuning in live or you're watching hashtag replay, I am Lawrence Henderson. I am half of this crazy bunch from the C3 community, the Conscious Leader Co-op. And I am here with Karen Huller, the brain trust of this amazing group. And so, Karen, I will turn it over to you just to get everybody acclimated to what they're watching and how they're tapping in today.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for joining us today for these incredible conversations that we have and the incredible panelists that we have that are able to come and share their story and be vulnerable with us and help us, really, because what we're all here to create is a more conscious corporate landscape. Through these events and through other events like this, we co-create that. We do knowledge share, we share case studies, we tell you our secret sauce, and we get the word out, because the better we can all lead consciously, the more transformation we'll be able to see, and particularly in the corporate landscape where a lot of money changes hands and a lot of power is. So if we're going to change the whole planet, then it seems like a pretty logical place to start in my mind. So if you're just viewing us live right now and you're not yet a member of the C3 community, which stands for Corporate Consciousness Co-op, and it is a LinkedIn community where it's kind of like the public television of LinkedIn groups. All of our content is driven by our members. They select it, they give us ideas, they help us organize it, they help us host it, they come on and they share their wisdom with us. It's really pro promotion. Let's get the word out. Nothing should stay a secret if it's working, especially. So I have my, underneath my picture there, you'll see the link to check that out. As we're going, please engage. I won't be able to see if you're here, Lawrence does, but we'll be able to know if you comment, and we welcome your questions and comments. Today, we have Amy Blakeslee. She is a business energy coach and best-selling author of Awakening Through Anxiety, A Journey to Finding One's True Self. The topic that we're talking about today, as voted by our C3 members, is reconnecting to your authentic self. I'm assuming, Amy, that we've all, maybe not all of us, but a lot more of us than ever before, have experienced this anxiety. And I'd love to know how the title of your book came about.
Right. Well, great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to join the group today. I would say the title of my book came about because of my journey. So I had experienced a pretty traumatic childhood, and I did not resolve the trauma throughout my life until a moment came in my life where I had no choice but to not ignore it anymore. And so through that, really, it became my awakening. So that's through my anxiety, I started to explore who I was, why I was here. And that really was my journey, where I awakened to who we really are, our true self.
I can't wait to hear more about that. Now, you work with a lot of other people who have been down that same journey where you have trauma, it's not healed. It causes things to happen in your life. Can you describe some of those things that can happen when you're not being your authentic self and that causes anxiety in your life?
Right. Well, the anxiety, really, you're coming from a fear-based perspective when you're really living from anxiety. So what you really, as a person, you're really vibrating anxiety and fear out into the universe. So you have to remember that we live in an energetic-based universe, and everything that we attract into our experience is based on the energy that we're flowing out, right? And so what we flow out is what's really, what's held in our subconscious, and or what is within our DNA from our ancestral history that's carried within us. So it's stuff that's largely unaware to us consciously. right? But it's there, and it's creating this experience for us that's less than ideal. So for me, I was attracting exactly what I was vibrating out, and I was vibrating out anxiety. So I was bringing in more and more experiences to me that would create that anxiety. So I had some challenging relationships with work. Sometimes what I was my goals weren't being met, but most really was that my mindset and how I felt was just awful all the time. So, and it affected my entire life, not just my career, but my personal life. And it really held me back, and it held me back from being who I came here to be. And it stopped me from showing up as who I really am, because there was a part of me that was like, I'm defective. There's something wrong with me. Why does this anxiety keep happening? Right. And you could say, well, why didn't you just go to a therapist and, talk it out with them? But I really wasn't ready for that. I didn't want to face it. There was too much stuff that had happened that I felt, well, is that my fault? Is there something wrong? So it really took my suffering to really come to a really high point for me have to say, wait a minute, something's got to change here.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love your description of kind of those vibrations, right? Because as a leadership index assessment coach and energy leadership through IPEC, it's hitting me home with the vibrations and all the stuff and emitting and you getting in return what you're putting out. It's almost the emotional confirmation bias of it all, and it's like if you're showing up that way, expect more of it. And so for you, I'm always interested as an author. What made this a body of work that you felt you needed to write?
Right. Well, I felt like once I had gone through it, part of discovering my authentic self, who I was also discovering why I'm here. And I think that's something we all need to do, right? We're not necessarily here just to work a job. We all came into this life with a purpose. And, for expansion for ourselves, for us to learn and grow, for us to experience joy, but for also to be in gifts of service to the world, right? To give our unique talents and stuff to the world. So, after I went through that and I discovered my life purpose is to help others awaken to their true self, to align their energy to that and to their vision and to who they came here to be. And so they can increase their impact and really start loving life and what they do. So when I got to that point, I said, well, I have a story that's really worth sharing here. And my book isn't only about my story and about awakening. I do also have tools in the book that help people to connect to their true self, to release limiting beliefs that are stuck in our bodies, and to, teaching things about gratitude and visualization, how to be a conscious creator of your life through visualization, intention setting, and learning how to become present in the moment. And, my anxiety was so intense. It was almost debilitating at times. And having gone through all of the transformation I did, and today I'm largely a peaceful and calm person in most cases. And I think everyone really deserves to live like this. We're really here. We're meant to live in joy, not in fear. And, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy, what did you do before you had this transformation for yourself?
Do you mean professionally or? Yes. So I was in technology. I started as an engineer, and I worked my way up into leadership roles. I worked for some really great companies. I'm very grateful for it. I worked for Disney, Universal Music Group, and some other really great companies. So I got to do some really good things, share their gifts of service that they bring to the world. But, and I liked it, but I never loved it because it never spoke to my soul. But once I did awaken to myself, who I am and my purpose, I was able to bring some of this stuff, obviously, into the corporate world, because I do agree in the corporate world, it's such a huge impact on people, society, just everything in general. But there's so much fear that runs through the corporate world. And I really feel that there's a lot we can do just coming back to our authentic self and living from it, that will change the corporate world.
When you think about, and again, when me and Karen early on, when we started this co-op and really started talking about just the practice and the consciousness of it all, and you mentioned that several times, of coming into this awareness about not only what was going on with you, but you needed to do something about it. What was that moment that you can recall that was like, okay, I moved from knowing what's going on to now I need to do something about it?
When was the moment where I had my basically awakening? Is that
Yeah.
Really
that part.
Yeah.
Or dark night of the soul sometimes, right?
Yeah, the jar from the soul. Yeah, for me it was, I was really in a period, my children were really small. I was working. Obviously that's really tough to be a working mom with kids and all of that. And just, there was a lot of stress just in my life in general. And that's when my anxiety started to get really high. And the more I tried to control it, the bigger it became. But one day my husband at the time had left a magazine out, and it had a book review for the book The Secret sitting out, and it wasn't even a good review. It was not a good review at all. But I read it and I was like, I have to get this book. And I got that book that day and I read it within 24 hours and my life was changed. So,
Wow.
I mean, The Secret has its, pros and cons to it. I think it's a really good, I call it good spirituality 101 book. But from that moment on, it just opened my eyes up to a whole new world. I immediately felt relief from my anxiety. I went on a path. I mean, I bought hundreds of books. I was just so thirsty for knowledge, working with master coaches and spiritual teachers myself. So it was quite a journey.
Yeah, I fell through that secret door too in about 2008. That was shortly after I started my business. And I was thirsty for knowledge as well. I'm a questioner, a la Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies. So for me, it was really hard to just buy that, okay, so we can just, manipulate reality by thinking positive. I dug into, I wanted to know the science behind it. Like, how does this work? And I wanted to, I read clinical studies on our bioenergetic field. Like, I was like, what do they know about this? And it seems like scientifically they know very little, but the cause and effect of it is very real. Right. So if there are other people out there who seem skeptical, and we know the corporate world is full of people who are probably like, what is this all about? Right. The cause and effect is real. And once you prove it to yourself, it's really hard to dispute that it isn't real. So when people share with you that they're skeptical or they're not buying into it, I mean, you could either just say, that's all right, it's not for you, and that's cool. I'm just going to vibrate at my highest level and you'll get the benefit of that anyway, right? But how do you handle it? How do you handle the skepticism?
Well, I think the problem with The Secret is it didn't talk about vibration, right? It was like, oh, just change your thoughts. Oh, I want that new car, and the new car is going to show up. Right. So I do fully I agree with skepticism around just some of the principles around The Secret that were shared. But I think you can equate it to quantum physics, to that we attract what we bring into our world from a science perspective. So I think you have to ask the person, what's their worldview? Are they coming from science? Do they look at world through religion or spirituality? And from there you can have a conversation. And so some people will just be like, no, that's not true. And then you have to just say, yeah, it's not for you. You're not, maybe it's not your time to awaken yet, and that's okay. Maybe you don't awaken, that's fine. I always say that there's about 8 billion people on the planet. So there's going to be 8 billion different ways of awakening.
True.
That's going to happen. So, and a lot of times the proof is in the pudding. You got to try it. And once you do, you can see what really comes up. And there's simple ways. For me, one of the things I like to start out teaching my clients, especially if they do meditation practice already, is just teaching them presence. and to just watch their thoughts and change their thoughts in the moment something happens, they can really affect the outcome of what you're dealing with. It can affect how you're feeling, first and foremost, and really have a chance to see what's happening in the moment rather than kind of running on autopilot and just on your programming.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of the science is catching up. Like neuroscience is something I've dove into in my quest for knowledge, and even that'll tell you like you need an anticipation of a positive outcome in order to activate the motivational centers of your brain, the problem-solving centers of your brain. So, you know, it everything's interconnected. You know, it's it's easy to see when you have that cause and effect again. Harder to see when it's not. But when you realize like everything's really aligning in this, that there's not a lot of dissension among how this type of healing of yourself is going to impact how your future turns out. Can we talk about the healing part, the trauma part? That is that the first step, would you say? And you're talking about meditation, just watching your thoughts and self-awareness. And we talk about self-awareness all the time, especially as leaders, right? But the healing part of it, I can see, would scare a lot of people. Just like you didn't want to go through therapy, you weren't ready to face some of those things. Right. Is that like step 4, maybe? Like you introduce them to these things and then they get results, and then you're like, okay, now let's take a look at some traumas you've had.
I think it can go hand in hand. So you really can't, in my view, you can't really connect to your authentic self while you're carrying around the baggage of trauma, right? You need to let that go, because you're carrying around basically a lot of fear-based energy. And at our essence, we are all really love. So in order to really connect to that and live from that love, we need to get, I don't want to say get rid of, we need to transform everything within us that does not align to that love. And it can be done together. Now, there's one reason why I'm an energy coach, specifically with this life energy coaching, is that it's a very fast and almost effortless form of transformation. And I discovered this, I went through this, so much of my trauma was healed through this, working with the founders of life energy coaching, Marie and Shirley Ansell. So, and basically, all of these limiting beliefs within your subconscious or within your ancestral history will come to life. All of the hidden challenges can come out and be ready to be healed. And it's extremely easy and effortless to be done because you're doing it while you're connected to your higher self and to what I like to call our helpers, our spiritual helpers, all of the beings that are there of love that are here to help us on our journey. And so it's really, it's pretty, compared to, I think some of the other techniques, or being on drugs or something to help control your anxiety, it's pretty effortless. And when I started working with them and I jumped into it, whereas before I didn't want to talk about my trauma, I didn't want to bring it up or whatever. I just went full force into it. And I said, let's expose it all. Let's bring it all to light. I want to expand and grow. And I continue to do it to this day because we're always expanding, and we're all like onions. We have many layers, and something new comes up and it activates a limiting belief somewhere. And so because it was so powerful for me, I decided myself to become a life energy coach, and specifically to work with leaders, because I do love the corporate world and I do feel that there is so much opportunity to change, to bring love into the workplace, and the power that we have once we're connected to our authentic self. I call them our superpowers, but we can really create our outcomes so much easier than when we're fighting against, struggling or fighting against the 3D world, you might say.
Mm-hmm. And Amy, and thank you so much for teeing up this next question, because as you were talking, you came to this place and it was like, I'm jumping off this cliff. I'm gonna build the plane on the way down, of trying to get my awakening because I need it. what is the thing you run up against with leaders you are trying to usher and help navigate through this type of work?
Well, I think the first challenge is, and I think goes with a question Karen asked earlier, is people have to be ready for it or open to it. So I think if you're not, you're not going to respond. I mean, you can still do energy work with people, and there can be changes that come up for them, but whether they recognize it or not is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So I really think just the readiness, and if someone's not ready, that is fine too, right? We're all on our own path. So.
Yeah. And kind of part two to that is something you say in describing what kind of the enlightened leadership program is all about. It's this energy balance. Can you speak to a little bit of this positive masculine feminine energy balance? Because before I understood what it was, I'm all man, I'm all masculine, I have no feminine energy whatsoever, and I do not claim that. Can you help people out with that? Because you might have some people stuck at the threshold of their breakthrough just because of some of the language of that.
Yeah, I can speak of my journey with it, with masculine and feminine energy. I mean, I think it's important that, we all have a healthy balance of it, right? Or especially in the corporate world, because the corporate world definitely skews further on the masculine side and not always in the positive masculine traits, right? But the feminine ones. But from my perspective, I was very much a masculine energy person myself. I was, because of my life, I was, on my own when I was 17 and, doing everything for myself. I was very much the forging ahead. I'm creating everything, pushing my outcomes. And I couldn't continue to be like that to receive what I needed to receive to be a conscious creator. So I had to develop my feminine energies myself. And a lot of people were like, well, you're a woman, you're wearing a dress, you're feminine energies. And it's like, no, I'm really vibrating. I'm pushing things away from me rather than attracting them to me. So it's really important to have a really healthy benefit, a healthy mix of that. It's a really good benefit. And especially in the corporate world where there's the lack of some of the feminine things around creation and the words escaping me, not coordination, but the sharing with everyone and all that. So
nurturing,
everyone coming and working together and all that. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about purpose. Your purpose became real to you because you had this amazing transformation. You wanted to be able to share that with other people. And I work with people on purpose all the time. And I feel like sometimes when I work with people on purpose, it really does require them to remove that fear and those limiting beliefs before they could even try on what their purpose is. So can you see that purpose becomes clearer simply as a byproduct of flipping that fear? Or is it something like, well, now we've worked through the trauma and now, is it about synchronicities happening and you being more open to what probably has been tugging at you this whole time? You've just been ignoring it. Yeah. How have you witnessed the purpose manifesting?
Well, I would say that when you're fully connected, when you're connected with your authentic self, who you are, that's when your purpose can come to you, right? Very clearly. And for me, it did come through, I was doing a meditation. It came through like, oh, you should be a life coach, But again, I was doing the life energy work at the time and I brought that to my coach and we did some work on that. And it was really, to become a life energy coach. And you're right that it does, there are things that probably push at us all the time that say, this is your purpose, that we ignore them. Like when I was a child, I really always wanted to help other people. I wanted to be a teacher. At one point I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And then I just ended up in, technology because I was like, oh, I need a job that's going to pay good money. Right. So, and that's why work became really stressful for me too, because I was not, I'm doing technology rather than being aligned to really connecting with people. Except, in my leadership role, I could bring some of this into my leadership role more, the purpose, but it wasn't the same as being able to fully focus with people. So I do think really getting really clear about who you are, which means letting go a lot of the limiting beliefs and such, to really know yourself on that, I want to say on that soul level, can really help confirm what your purpose is.
Yeah, along those lines of purpose and just really as you navigate spaces that you're in, one of our guests and one of our guest presenters and hosts that we love to bring in, Carl, he asked the question, and it's more on that corporate side. Have you seen in the corporate space, mainly C-suite leaders, embrace the total philosophy or just embrace it kind of in the process in general as a common practice?
Are they picking out parts that they like and leaving
exactly.
the rest?
Exactly.
Yeah, from my perspective, I still think that it hasn't really hit the C-suite yet. Perhaps certain people, but not broadly across the organization, right? And I think that could be because in the C-suite, you have a lot of the type A. They know how to really navigate the world the way it is, and they get really great results doing that. So, they're probably not questioning these things as much as someone whose work might not be working out so well for them. I find that's usually when people come to me, is when they're feeling, anxiety, something's not working out. Maybe I had an altercation at work with someone and I didn't look so great in it. So but it's just their cue, like we need to jump in and do something differently.
That's really interesting that,
Mm-hmm.
The C-suite hasn't caught on simply because they're navigating the world as it is. That's what an aha moment that is.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking about it from the perspective of just what you were describing earlier, Amy, is if you're not reaching out to a coach or somebody who is digging into this type of work, it's almost like, well, I don't want to be found out, so I'm not going to say anything because I'm a key. If I'm still achieving some type of success, I'll keep going. And hopefully it'll fix itself, right? It's like success through osmosis, emotional, right? And so when you think about just bringing folks, and again, that awareness, that consciousness, what are the moments that just give you joy? Like when you see that person, they're like, God, finally.
Yeah.
What are those moments like?
I think some of the joy is that I'll get an email from somebody and say, oh my God, this just happened. And which is like something they were struggling with. And all of a sudden, like the doors opened up and what seemed impossible just happened for them. Right. And then I can go back and say, well, look, in our last time we met, we did work around this, and this. And it's, and can help them see, because I always like to bring them back to, this wasn't just me, like I helped you do this because I'm here to coach you, but you really did this. You opened yourself up for this healing and this transformation. And so to see some of the really cool things, like whether it's a really, a block has been removed at work, something happened that, oh my God, it feels like a miracle, a relationship, like maybe I hadn't talked to this person in 20 years and now I'm speaking to them again. And wow, I can't believe how easy that happened. So, that brings me joy, is just seeing the results that people I work with get,
So this is kind of an existential question that we might not answer very easily today as a group, but something that's food for thought for the future is really how can we open up the C-suite, even if it's not the current C-suite, but how can we ensure that future C-suites are more receptive to energy healing, to healing their traumas. I'm continually reading and rereading my notes back from Conscious Leadership by Jim Mackey. He talks about shadow work. That's something that, would you consider this along the lines of shadow work? And can you tell us in your definition what that looks like, what that is?
Are you talking about what shadow work is? Are you asking me for that? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Karen.
Yeah.
Because I don't do shadow
Okay.
work per se, but shadow work, from my understanding, it is where you're bringing up what's hidden behind you, that's creating, and within your beliefs, that's creating the world that you're experiencing today. So
Mhm.
that's my understanding. I don't.
How is it different? Can you explain that?
With life energy work, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So with life energy work, we do examine limiting beliefs do come up but we do that through the support of the person's higher self. We're kind of created in a bubble of love. So it's not just doing it within this, just within our conscious mind. We're also relying on the spiritual partners to help us to bring that, what we need to our awareness and what needs to heal specifically to bring a person to alignment into something. So it does bring up the limiting beliefs, but we're doing it using more of the power of, again, our higher self and the other beings that we have that can help us, like ascended masters or archangels and such.
That does sound much easier than it feels like shadow work seems psychologically very excruciating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Even saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Well, it's using your mind, and a lot of times your mind won't let you get you to where you need to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I found that that's been the biggest challenge, both with myself and with my clients, is kind of asking the mind to get out of the way so we can get to what we really need, to get to. And our mind wants to keep us safe. So it's going to be like, it wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us with status quo. It doesn't want to let go. And especially for people who have experienced a lot of trauma, such as myself, and I'm sure other people on this meeting, your ego mind is going to be probably a little more vigilant about wanting to keep you safe.
No, and I think that's an important note there, Amy. Really, that the competition of my healing or my ego telling me I'm okay, and that I got this. And I think that may be kind of that senior leader block to your question, Karen, in something that Amy, that's on your profile. It's them believing that there is some level of freedom in that leadership level. I have the ability to make decisions. I have the ability to influence. And again, but this release is, no, are you doing it freely? Are you doing it as your whole self, your authentic self, or this curated facade, if you will, and just making it to that next moment? And I think they're in a corporate space, and there's this permission to practice being vulnerable. And I know Carl brought that up earlier, but in that vulnerability, that's what you discussed earlier. How did you get comfortable with that? Because that's not a natural thing for people to just be like, it's courageous, but it's not natural for me just to be like, I gotta jump. How do you help people get to that moment where it's like, okay, I take a step? How do you get people to a step? Not jump all the way, but take a step towards it.
Right. Again, it's really through the energy work. So bringing up what are their limiting beliefs and what's holding them back from taking that step. And once that comes to the light, we can transform it back, from that negative belief. And, and the ego, of course, will stop. But I find that the more powerful I become and the more of those limiting beliefs that are no longer within me, the quieter my ego does become, right? So it will start quieting down because those triggers are no longer there that it's associating with what's happening in the current moment, right?
Got it. Yeah, no, I like it. Because it almost puts you in this space of, and I remember Simon Sinek it was almost redefining how you show up. And again, challenging that traditional definition of what you're supposed to be in the spaces you're in, and really to say, hey, I'm fully me all the time, gooey, squishy, vulnerable, emotional, all those things, which again, we've been told has been taboo for most of our corporate lives. But now having that ability to say, you know what, this monkey is on my back. and I don't know how to navigate it. And what comes up for me as you describe that is trusting someone with that. And
yeah.
me navigating if you have the capacity or capability to hold my stuff. So what are your thoughts on that, in that exchange of trust and confidence and all the rest of those things that come up?
Right. I mean, trust is obviously a really important thing for any coach to have with their clients. So, again, I think it goes along with, I always keep going back to energy, because everything is a reflection of the energy that we hold. And when you come with a client and when you're working with them from a very loving vibration and perspective, and, as you work with them and as they see the results in their life, I mean, I think with anything, it's just experience and seeing what's happened. So I do always, everybody, wherever you're at on your path, if you're doing it yourself or if you're doing it with someone else, journal. I tell everyone to journal all the time. And whenever you have a chance to, you have an aha moment, you have something that's bothering you and you're suffering from it, jot it down. And because transformation can be sometimes so easy and almost elegant, and you're not even aware of it, right? Until you realize something is not there, then you're like, wait a minute, I'm not experiencing that anymore. But when you write it down, you can go back and look at it, and you're not going to bring it back into your experience, but it's a good way to just look and say, really celebrate what you've done, that you've opened yourself up for that transformation. And so when people start to see the progress they're making, that just helps to continue to build the trust together, because they're really doing the work too, right? So everyone they need to celebrate what they're doing.
Absolutely. I have a couple of thoughts running through my mind. One is, when we first came up with this topic, and we've talked a lot about psychological safety and being your authentic self, and I did some landmark education in 2008, and what became clear to me was that it's not, that was a safe place to be my authentic self. And once I embraced it was almost like a confrontation. Like I had my authentic self had to confront my inauthentic self, right? In that work. And then I had to confront the other people in my life and say, I've been inauthentic in these ways, which is really scary. And I forgot to say, oh, by the way, this is my new authentic self. I'm not that way anymore. But that made me realize, like, it's a freedom that I never had before. I didn't realize how much energy I had expended trying to be this inauthentic person. And how free I felt now that I could be my authentic self. And yet at the same time, I had built my reality around this inauthentic person. And I had to confront that, okay, there are not safe places right now in this reality to be my authentic self, because it was built around my inauthentic self. Is that something that disappears with the kind of work that you do, or is that still something that happens?
It does. I mean, the more you align to your authentic self, the easier it is to be that, to show up to and be it. The more you embody it, that's just who you are. But that was the same on my path. So for most of my life, I hid who I was because, I was embarrassed of my childhood, the trauma or whatever. And when I would be with people, they talk about their childhoods, I really wouldn't talk about mine because, it's like it's not probably going to be acceptable or be judged or something like that. So throughout my whole path, I had to deal with that, coming to terms with who I am. And in most circles, you really can't talk about your authentic self like we're talking about today, right? Or to talk about, wow, I did this visualization and I created this really cool thing. Oh my God, it's so great. Like you can't share that because you'll either be thought of as, a woo-woo or, someone different, just not part of reality, I guess. And so I had to go through, obviously when I released my story, it is the story of my childhood, as well as the effects that anxiety had on me, and then my beliefs around who we really are. And then sharing the exercises of that. So that book did take me a couple of years to release. I waited till I left the corporate world because I was not comfortable myself releasing it while being in the, being an executive in technology and then having the story float around. For me, that was something that I just didn't feel aligned to. So when I had the chance to, move out of that and into my own business, then I was able to do that. So, but a lot of times, I've discovered too, if I tell somebody, oh, I'm not that person anymore, I look at something differently because I see I'm not the victim anymore. A lot of people don't understand that unless they've been through it, unless they see how we tend to make ourselves the victims of things rather than seeing that we're really powerful. We're either powerful creators, or what is showing up is showing us where we're out of alignment with who we really are. So everything that shows up in our life is actually a blessing, whether we deem it good or bad. But it's really hard to have that conversation with some people. But today I'm just me. So I think that you just get on your journey and you begin to embody, who you are. So
yeah. I think that's one of the things that, and as Karen, as we think about just the community of C3 and think about the leader of tomorrow, there are these bridges that I believe need to be built and people to help facilitate crossing them as it pertains to doing this energy, emotional work, this connection work. Because I as a professor with 20 somethings, and we have the conversation about authentic self, is totally different than I have a conversation with some, tenured career folks. It's a totally different conversation. And these bridges with, coaches like you, Amy, coaches like Karen, in our C3 community and practitioners got our work cut out for us. I will say we got work for years to come as it pertains to bridging those gaps. But if you had to give kind of 3 tips of somebody who wanted to start this work, maybe working with you, reaching out to you for work, or anybody else, what are 3 things that you would just tell people to lean into as they're on this journey?
Right. Well, of course, I would say to reach out to me because I life energy coaching and the process of how we work. And again, the power behind it and the ease and everything is just, I haven't found anything else like it, which is why I obviously embraced it for myself. I would also, when I start working with people, I do really encourage people to develop their own meditation habit, first of all, because they really need to start seeing what's going on within themselves, watching their mind, feeling what's in your body is really important. Our bodies are just such important partners for us on this life journey. And they're telling us whether we're in alignment or not to our authentic self. So I do work with them on meditation and teaching presence. So really getting used to feeling what's in your body and letting that energy go, because that will change your vibration as well. So I think those are the biggest 3 things. And of course, I always encourage everyone to go out and read and explore topics as well on the subject and educate themselves in whatever way. I mean, like I said, I have hundreds of books on it. I still buy books constantly. I really love to learn and to see different perspectives of what's going on out there. I think the 3rd thing would be is as you learn something, to start using it, make it a practice. And I think one of the things to do, it's hard to develop a new habit. So even if it's okay, I want you to get into the habit of being present during the day. Well, I can't remember that. I'm after meeting. So, put stickers, Post-its up, set timers, anything you can do, create a word that when you see that word, that word for you means being present. So
good tip.
yeah, so just really starting to live it and not beat yourself up, because it's really hard to change out of, to do this transformation towards yourself.
I really love that the C3 community voted on this topic, and I really want to ask the people who voted for it, what is it that drew you to this topic? What are you experiencing in your life that made you want to know more about reconnecting with your authentic self? What kinds of things would you say, if you're experiencing XYZ, then maybe explore some energy work?
So if you're exploring, I think if you're experiencing challenges in your life that where you want to, increase your impact, I would say to explore it. If you want to connect to your authentic self, absolutely. If you want to discover your unique life purpose, for sure. And then also if you want to build a business that is based on your unique life purpose, I can help align all your energy and all of that to make it come true. So really, there's really I think every situation can be addressed with life energy work. So.
Have you seen anything universally happening as a result of 2020 and the last few years? Anything that seems to be popping up really frequently for people?
Anxiety. That's what I see the most.
Yeah.
Is that everyone has there are so many fears that were brought up by the pandemic and the lockdowns, both on their existence, their jobs, politics. I mean, everything is coming up from that. So anxiety, which to me, from my perspective, anxiety is a really good stepping stone into awakening. So
it's a gift then.
Yeah.
Just like everything else we experience, right?
Yeah, everything's a gift.
Wonderful. And then if you can go through the outcomes, just generally, like when you do energy work, you'll experience XYZ.
Right. So you'll experience a very different experience when you change. You'll experience what you want to experience, right? You'll start to, from the purpose perspective, when you connect to purpose, you will start feeling love and joy and passion for what you do. If you're having relationship issues, and I actually have a blog post out there right now about this, but because everything's a mirror, what shows up in our reality is just a reflection of what's inside of us. So if you're having relationship issues and you do some life energy work, the relationships is going to shift, or the person could leave your experience, right? They might. But either way, only what's going to be allowed into what you're experiencing is what's matching your vibration on that specific topic or situation. So, yeah.
Great.
Well, amazing work that you do, Amy. And again, I'm grateful for the community, particularly, this season of life that I find myself in, dealing with authentic self. And as you were talking, it doesn't seem like this work ever stops, does it?
No. Growing. We'll never get it done, right?
Yeah.
But it can be fun when you look at it from everything that comes up is really something that's helping me to grow and to make a better life for myself. You can maybe get to the same place where I'm like, yes, this came up. Let me go explore it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I was just talking with somebody like, let's hope everything that's happening right now is really just a doorway to a better future somehow. It's like the paradigm.
I believe our planet is in a huge awakening state. So everything that doesn't align to it has to come up to be examined, right? That doesn't align to love is coming up. So.
And then it also seems like another outcome is self-love, full self-love and acceptance. And who doesn't want that, right?
Yes. That's probably the most important one, Karen. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff, Karen. Thank you. Navigating these spaces of authentic self. And so, as always, I know, Amy, we always count it a pleasure when our panelists say yes, first of all. But then when you start dropping all these platinum nuggets of wisdom and just being authentic yourself, right, as you present and really drinking your own Kool-Aid first. And I loved as you started every comment, he was like, from where I am and the work that I've done, you was like, hey, I drink my Kool-Aid before I make anybody else drink it. So thank you so much for that and showing up, doing your work and then the work you help others navigate through. So thank you so much for that. And we've been posting all of your links to your book. I found them Got your Amazon books. I got your LinkedIn profile. I got everything in the chat. So I've been sharing like crazy during this live.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
It just
Karen,
makes sense. Everything that we're doing, all of our efforts in the C3 community it just seems like the work that you do, if we could all embrace that work, all our efforts would actually have amazing results, and resistance would fall away.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Well, Karen, what do you say? I call this a success.
I would say definitely. I'm really curious. I hope that after the fact, whoever wasn't able to, thank you so much for everybody who was commenting. Doc, I saw your comment. Yes, the 3 Ps. Absolutely. It seems like this awakening in consciousness absolutely have a connection to that. And if you're watching live, but you were just sitting back and you haven't commented, ponder it, think about it, share with us your thoughts. Even if you're skeptical, like bring it up. Let's talk about it. Let's wherever you're at, I want to know. And also, if you voted for this topic in the C3 community, was this what you expected, or was it something completely new? Is it something that now you're intrigued about, you want to know more about? Obviously, reach out to Amy. And if you've ever explored energy work, like raise your hand, because the more we can say, actually more people than we know are actually doing this work or involved in this work, then the more we normalize it in a place where it really needs to be normalized. We can get that much further, that much faster. And that's really exciting to me. Amy, thanks so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
All right. And so like Karen started us off, if you are not a part of the C3 community, you better get some act right and hit the link, become a part of the community so you can be made aware of our next conversation. And if you want to be a part of one of our future panels, host, if you're a part of our community, please know that we really do derive our topics from our community. So we are active, we are engaged in understanding what's meaningful to you as we navigate these spaces of awareness, consciousness, and just being all around good people. Putting it plainly. All right. So until next time, Karen, any last words for the people?
Have a great March.
Marching through March.
Marching through March. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Until next time, be safe, be well, and we will see you soon.